Okay. Hi, I hear we have a challenge or problem that you'd want to deal with today.
Yeah, I have very many problems we need to deal with today.
Yeah, tell me about them.
So, it all has to do with my dog Moose. First of all, I'll tell you a bit about him. He's a big dog, and he's 3 years old. We got him when he was just a little puppy, so we've had him for almost 3 years. And we've had a few different challenges with him since we've had him. But those challenges have changed a bit since we have moved into our house that we're currently in. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we've dealt with.
Of course, yeah.
The first thing that that we have dealt with before, and we're still kind of keeping an eye on now because we don't know how it'll be, is leash aggression. So in the old house that we lived in, it was a very busy neighborhood. There were lots of dogs around us, and a lot of them were already leash aggressive. So we found that with Moose, as he was growing up in that environment, he became also very leash aggressive. So that was really tricky to deal with. We weren't really sure how to fix it when we were in that house. We had tried getting a trainer and getting some advice from kind of a professional. We found that some of the techniques were working, but nothing was really like clicking. And what we actually found is since moving to a totally new neighborhood, totally new house, that actually has done a lot for his leash aggression, I think, just automatically being in a new area. So something that we learned about dogs is that they can be very protective of their environment and of their surroundings. And we think that because the last place that we lived was very congested, Moose felt a lot of anxiety about that, and that was starting to translate into aggression. Whereas now where we are, there's not as many aggressive dogs around us. I think overall he has lessened anxiety. So, you know, tentatively we feel like this has maybe been fixed a little bit, but it's also still something that I'm very cautious of every day when I walk Moose around our neighborhood.
What does that do to yourself, I guess, compared to living in your old place versus now? Do you think that has changed your aura around Moose? Maybe seeing a change in his aggression?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I mean, like, from what I've learned from dog training and just from doing research, like dogs pick up your energy. So I think because it was so stressful for Moose being in that past neighborhood, I was also stressed out. And I mean, it is tough when you have a dog that's aggressive on a leash. Like, he's a big dog, so it was kind of scary sometimes, not knowing if he was gonna lunge or pull me. I didn't know if I'd be able to hold him back. So I think even like proactively I was becoming anxious when I'd take him for a walk, and then he would feed off of that. Whereas I feel like now we've kind of been able to have a bit of a blank slate. So it's like I'm a lot less, like, I'm not amping myself up to be anxious about it. I'm just kind of going, when we go outside, I'm way more neutral. So I think he senses that for me too.
In the past, you say the anxiety of him lunging and everything, were any experiences was there like a traumatic experience? Did he actually lunge, or was there an experience that has like a scarring effect on you? What happened there?
I wouldn't say there's been like one horrific experience. Like, there was never any fights or anything, but it definitely happened several times where he would like a dog across the street would start snarling and barking, and then he would also do the same, and he'd like kind of lunge in that direction.
So you would say it was another dog instigating it that caused him to be put in that state?
Sometimes in the beginning, definitely. Like, that's when Moose was still pretty good. That was what was happening in the beginning, but then eventually he would be the instigator as well. And so it kind of created a bit of a never-ending cycle. And that's what the dog trainer actually told us too, is like, it's tough when you live in an area where there's already so many dogs, and even if one dog has that aggression, it spreads like a sickness almost, because that one dog makes the other dog feel scared and aggressive, and then that dog makes another dog feel scared and aggressive, and it kind of just spreads throughout the neighborhood. So yeah, I think like to answer your question, like there was no big instance, but it was just kind of a lot of little incidents that slowly built up and up and up to create like kind of the end product that was like very anxiety inducing, both for me and for Moose. But yeah, it's definitely getting better now. We're like just making the move, I think made a huge difference. But then like we use a pinch collar on him now when we walk him, which just gives us a lot more control, and Moose also was just way more sensitive to like any pressure on the leash. And then we also recently started using a retractable leash with him when we walk, and we found that works really well. Once we've kind of got his walking etiquette in order, like he's always been a decent walker. You wanna let him out? Moose, outside.
Go outside.
You can just leave it open.
Okay.
The retractable leash is also, it seems to be helping as well, because it gives him the freedom to kind of go far ahead, stay back, do his sniffing that he needs to do, and he doesn't feel like he's confined to like a short 5 or 6 foot leash. So
Yeah, so you were saying that when you moved to this new house, which is gorgeous by the way, there was more space, and so you felt like his anxiety was relaxed because of that. Do you think that was because he just didn't feel physically confined, or do you think it was also a fact that maybe he had more room to move being a big dog, and that led to maybe him being more tired, so he had pent up energy?
yeah, I think you're totally right there. I think like all of his issues kind of like bleed into each other. Like in the townhouse, it was a small home. It was very chaotic and busy all the time. Lots of people, lots of dogs around us all the time. We had very little privacy, so like we always could hear people walking past our front door. We could hear the neighbors through the walls. We had people below us. So yeah, like anxiety in general was high, and then you combine that with not having kind of an easy, safe, anxiety-free outlet for energy, and it kind of just like built up to create a larger issue. So yeah, I think like because like I said, we didn't really do anything differently with the leash aggression since we've moved, but just being in this space where it's like like everything is just like a little bit more relaxed. We have more privacy. There's not like people walking past our front door every day. He has a yard where he can just like sniff and let out some energy that way. We can also take him right out back to the field and like play fetch with him, and it's like basically zero stress compared to before. We'd have to like walk him all the way to another field where there was always at least one other dog there. And yeah, so I think it totally is just like many different factors that have created like a calm environment for him.
Nice. You also mentioned how he's 3, and so he's kind of just becoming an adult dog now. Do you think him going through like a teenage phase while being in that space and now kind of growing up as more mature, do you think that played a part in it?
I've thought about that. I was thinking the other day, like, it's weird, he like hasn't chewed anything in this house. Like we can leave our shoes out, we can leave everything out. If it's treats, he'll eat it, but like otherwise he doesn't care. And in the townhouse, we have to be so careful about not even leaving shoes or slippers or like books or anything out because he would chew them up. And when we lived in the townhouse, we kind of chalked that up to him being young. I think that was probably part of it, is that he was young, but I think also it was just like pent up energy too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe if we had been living in this house the whole time, we wouldn't have had as many issues, even when he was young. But yeah, I don't know. I think it probably played a little bit of a part.
And so, seeing as he's a part of your family now, and it can create a lot of stress on you and Trey. Do you think that inability to control or kind of deal with his anxiety, do you think that did any stress on your relationship with Trey at all?
Yeah, I think we definitely both experienced stress. I don't think it didn't affect our relationship between us two. It was more just like we're both dealing with this crappy issue.
Mm-hmm.
So like individually we were both stressed.
Do you think that it made you stronger in a way because it was a problem-solving thing, or do you think it was just something you had to deal with? It definitely didn't have to necessarily have an effect, right?
Yeah, I mean, we already worked together pretty well, so like it definitely was helpful to have a partner that we could like bounce ideas off of and like provide comfort for each other when it was stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Other issues in our life have definitely like made us stronger. This was just, it's hard because it's like it's your home and it's your dog and it's something that you deal with 2-3 times a day, so it's different from like, I don't know, like what's another problem that you have? Like it's the
financial issues maybe.
Yeah,
could be
like
something.
it's something that we can't avoid, right?
Yeah.
And it happens every day, so it's like every 4 hours it's in like another chance for something to happen or another incidence of stress.
Mm-hmm.
I think honestly, like us moving was
That
like
was
the
the
reason
fix.
why yeah, but I think also the reason why we were pushed to move and we felt like that was the right decision was a lot because of Moose as well. So I think if we'd stayed in that house, it would have probably caused more stress, and then maybe would lead to like more problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, we figured it out, but I think we also like we just made the right decision by moving here, and that like helped to solve a lot for us.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any past experiences with dogs throughout your life that you were able to relate this behavior to not relate this behavior? How did that influence how you dealt with his problems?
I hadn't really dealt with it. I don't know that Trey really had either. Like we both were kind of going in blind dealing with these kinds of problems. And I think it was especially difficult because of Moose's size. That made it like even harder for us to deal with. Like if he was only 15 or 20 pounds, it would have been a lot easier for us to just manage. And so, yeah, again, it was just kind of like compounding. Like we didn't have experience with this. It's hard. Like you don't want to just jump into spending $1,000 on dog training with someone you've never met, right? So it is kind of tricky. And like I said, it's your day to day. It's happening every single day. So like, you know, it's not like it's a one-off incident where you have months and months to like think about it and plan carefully and okay, let's start with this and move slow. Like it's happening every day. So we kind of had to like, we felt like we were under pressure to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can understand that can be really stressful for not only you, but then putting that stress onto Moose. That's quite a heavy hand to be dealt, I guess you could say, for sure. So coming into the new house, you now felt like you have somewhat solved this issue. Has any new issues occurred? Do you think overall he just seems like a better, or not better, maybe like calmer dog?
A lot has gotten better. I think he still has, I mean, he still is the same dog, right? So it's not all going to be perfectly fixed. You know, we've lived in this house for 8 months now, so there's been enough time for him to kind of settle in and get back to old habits. One of the things that we're dealing with is him like barking when people come to the door, and like he barks like he kind of goes crazy. And that only has kind of recently started to develop over the last, say, 2 months. So that's something that we're working on right now is, you know, figuring out how we can kind of train him away from getting so excited or whatever it is, protective when people come to the door. But it's hard because it's like half the time it's strangers and then half the time it's people he loves. So it's like, that's hard to train away, you know?
And so this new challenge that seemingly, because you could almost assume that maybe he's anxious that someone's at the door, right? But if you're going back to the townhouse where he seemingly was more anxious, and now here where he is less anxious, at least on the leash, you now have a situation where he's in the open, but now still doing a barking mechanism. So do you think it's like a physical thing, like he can't see outside, or do you think, like, have you kind of thought about what it could be?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest difference is back in the old house, it was like chronic anxiety. Like it was kind of like the same level of anxiety all day long. Now I think his general level of anxiety is fairly low, but then maybe they're like when someone knocks on the door, that's like a spike of whether it be anxiety or excitement or protectiveness, whatever it is, it's like spikes. But then I think he's pretty good at going back to normal fairly quickly. I think like if we're asking why he does it, I think part of it is probably his breed. Like half of his breed is meant to be a guard dog basically. So that, you know, if it's in his DNA, it's pretty hard to train out. I think it's also just something that, you know, many dogs go through. Yeah, I don't know. What we try to work on when we do our bits of training with him is we try to kind of change his association with the door knocking. So it's like basically what we do is we tell him like that's enough when he's barking, and then we try to give him a treat if he stops. And I find that like the more we keep on it, the more repetitive we are with it, doing it very often, he does like improve. And what we found is that kind of changes his mindset from being either like, oh my god, there's someone at the door, this is so exciting, or oh my god, there's someone at the door, I need to protect the house. Instead to be like, okay, I'm gonna do my bark, and then my job is done once my owner says that's enough, and I get a treat for doing my job. Instead of it being like an ongoing thing, feeling like he needs to keep going.
Definitely, yeah. So what I see is that we have the current situation is that he's the big dog barker, right? Especially when the door hits, and then we have this preferred lens of ideally he would maybe bark once, and then you would tell him, hey, Moose, that's enough, and then we're good. So going into the future, you say you've been practicing almost like a desensitization of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think this is something that you'll see in the near future, or how do you see that playing out?
Like how long we'll do that training for?
Yeah.
We'll probably have to do it forever, to be honest. I don't think we're the best at having it be like as regular as it should be in terms of like fake practicing, right? Like someone knocks on the door probably once a day, right? Like the mailman comes once a day. So it's tougher to do that training in a real life situation, because it's like half the time I do actually have to open the door, and I can't be like inside training him if I'm also at the front door talking to whoever knocked. So I think like something that we need to do is practice more, like have the doorbell ring, like use our phone to ring the doorbell, and then practice with him inside, or like have someone come to the door and knock, but have them like helping us with the training. So yeah, I think it'll be fairly long term. Like it's something that we'll probably have to do for a long time, and eventually the hope is that we'll still be using the command, but then he'll just learn the association and have that stick in his mind.
Yeah. So overall, you know, I would say he's had a decent amount of anxiety in his life, but that's slowly resolved based on you and Trey's move to the new house and everything. Of course, you're dealing with some new problems. Do you think overall you feel less anxious because of the moves you've made, and that has subsequently helped Moose?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like when we lived in the townhouse, if you had asked me like what keeps you up at night, or like what's the thing that stresses you out the most, the dog would be my answer. Like it was, because again, it was every single day, multiple times a day. It was very like isolating problem. It's tricky. We kind of felt like we had no easy solution, or like apparent like solution. So yeah, I'd say so. I definitely like that's been really awesome to see how he is now in this house and the changes that he's had. And it just gives me less to worry about too. Like there's I think a dog is always a work in progress. Like there's always something that you can train or something that you can do, but the fact that all of those issues were lessened so significantly, like it's made a huge impact.
Good. I'm glad we were able to solve that for you.